Go. All right. Do you want to give everybody another minute or two, or
I'll
should
just say thanks, Randy. I'll just say welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining. This is Matt Hiley at Tantalus Systems, and we're thankful that you're going to be here for our TRUSense Gateway update webinar. Again, I'm recording this, and we'll share the recording when we get done, as well as the PDF of the slides. With that in mind, we've got Randy Aeberhardt, who here at Tantalus is our Vice President of Strategic Initiatives and has really led our effort into bringing the TRUSense Gateway to market. Randy is going to provide an overview of where we stand with the product itself, as well as some of the successes that we've had in terms of customer deployments and use cases. So please, again, submit questions that you have through either chat or there's a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. I will monitor those throughout the session this morning. And when we get to appropriate breakpoints, ask any of the questions that come through. That said, Randy, the slides look great. Take it away, sir. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Matt, and thank you everybody for listening in. We're really appreciative of your time. So with that, let's make the best of it and get into the presentation. Tantalus is, for those of you who don't know us, we're a technology company dedicated to helping utilities like yours modernize their distribution grids. We've been in this game for quite a while, and we are doing this by helping you harness the power of data, across all of your devices and systems, all the way from the substation to the EV charger, right? We offer a number of smart grid solutions across multiple levels, whether these be intelligent connected devices or communications networks, data management, or enterprise applications, all backed up by, customer service and support teams that, meet you where you are now. When you put all of this together, we offer a platform for grid modernization that gives you everything that you need to tackle your near-term challenges and your long-term goals. Ultimately, our goal is to give you the visibility, command, and control that you need in the most flexible approach possible. Um, all of our work that we do is grounded in purpose, to help utilities that we support harness the power of this data and digitize and modernize their distribution grid. Our solutions are designed to be flexible, so that you can take advantage of any asset that you have currently in the ground and augment those assets with new devices and with new capabilities at your own pace and at your own budget. And we're really proud to have some of the longest standing customer relationships in the industry. As you see here, we've got a 99.4% customer retention rate. And we work very hard with our customers and very closely with them to understand their challenges and, more importantly, what kinds of solutions do they need to modernize their grids. Most of our applications and the things that we design, they're built based on input from customer steering committees. The TRUSense Gateway is no different. We have a group of customers, Tantalus customers, and non-Tantalus customers. The TRUSense Gateway is actually the first one that we used non-Tantalus customers to help steer and guide the development of the product. Today we support over, I think the last number I heard, Matt, if I'm not correct, it's over 300 utilities now. Anywhere from, really large investor-owned utilities to right down to, small utilities that have less than 1,000 connected devices.
That's right, Randy. We're at 300 plus now.
Yeah, thanks. We've got as I said, a long history. We've been in this game for 30 years. We have more than 3.5 million connected devices delivering more than 30 billion, meter reads, every year. So, enough about that. These are some of the challenges that many of you are facing and looking at right now. This past fall has been, a number of you that are on this call, you were affected by the hurricanes, right? That came through and really did a number on your distribution grids and interrupted the flow of power, to your customers, right? And as you all know, we don't know what to do anymore in our homes. We sit there and stare at each other over candlelight, when we don't have power, right? It brings commerce to a halt. It does all sorts of things to our lives. We've become so dependent upon this electricity that we need and to run our lives and to live our lives. And on top of all of that, right, you've got the extreme weather that's causing pressure on one end. And then from a technology point of view, you've got the electrification that's causing other problems for you. Traditionally, electric utilities, your job was to sell and distribute electricity, right? But now it's so much more. You're expected to be a warehouse for excess energy, right? You're supposed to be a battery for your community. You now have to, with the electrification of everything, there's additional, pressure on the grid, right? We thought data centers were going to be the end of it. Now it's AI powered data centers that require even more power, right? You've got crypto mining that's happening in areas, right? You've got all sorts of things that are affecting. You've got homeowners that are now generating electricity as well as consuming electricity, and they expect to be able to, use you, as I said, as a battery and then draw upon the distribution network when they need it, right? All of this is because of these decarbonization goals that are being implemented because, the root cause, whether you believe it or not, is, the extreme weather events. It's all of the carbon that we're releasing into the atmosphere. And so we're trying to get on top of that through all of these efforts and whether it's the electrification of everything and all of the other things. And that again is putting more pressure on the aging infrastructure, right? You've got transformers and, 18 months, 24 months, 36-month lead times, we've been told, for transformers. And you've got people out there that are buying EVs and charging, and, they happen to go in clusters, right? You buy an EV and the neighbor says, "Hey, that's a great idea. You got a great deal. I'm going to go do it the same." And before you know it, you've got two or three EVs on a single transformer. And if they all charge at the same time, you can say goodbye to that transformer in a little bit, right? So we need innovative methods to, protect the infrastructure, protect your assets by, knowing what energy is flowing when and being able to control that energy and the effects of those energy flows on your infrastructure. So really, there's a lot of things that are driving the need right now for grid modernization. In response, what we've been doing over the past few years is we've been working on a Tantalus grid modernization platform, partly through organic development that we've been doing, and also through a series of acquisitions that have happened over the past number of years. So at the base of our grid modernization platform, this is very familiar to those of you who've been with us for, since our very beginnings, is our network of connected devices. So this is our TrueConnect family of endpoint devices, which includes the gateway that we're going to be talking about, all of our TrueEdge, enabled, edge computing devices. We've had edge computing devices since 2013. All of our devices have got a little Linux core sitting inside of them. They're fully upgradable with a software configurable radio. We're able to support multiple protocols. We can gather data from disparate devices, whether these are your old, walk-by, drive-by devices, the water, gas, and electric devices that you're now looking to upgrade, right up to our TrueEdge devices, delivering that, and we're meter agnostic, right? So we have our modules that go into, Itron devices or Landis& Gyr devices or Aclara devices, right? And we give you the same experience regardless of the device that, you're using. So if you're mixing and matching from different vendors, you still get the same experience from an AMI perspective across all of your meters. So we really are meter agnostic. And all of this data now comes through a, TrueNet or True Connected network, as we're now calling it. You may have known it as TrueNet, but it's now True Connect. This is our communications network, which is very robust. Is designed to work in both rural and urban territories. It's a set and forget. The devices find each other, configure it, self-configuring, self-associating, self-managing. So all of this comes together, and the data ends up in what we're now calling our grid data management system. So the grid data management system, or TrueSync, which gathers all the data, you can think of that now as a data bus, right? So not only does it incorporate all of the data from, the Tantalus enabled equipment, but it will, because it speaks any protocol and can talk to any device, it can actually pick up everything from your substation to your protection devices to even behind the meter devices. It speaks all of the modern protocols, the DMP, and the legacy protocols like DMP3, modern protocols like 2030.5. It can deliver data, it collects all of this data, and it becomes a single source of truth for all of your back office systems. So your SCADA system is looking at the same data that your ADMS is looking at, that your OMS is looking at, that your billing system is looking at. All of these devices are able to pull all of that data out of the grid data management system. And it's the same data going to, it's the same set of data that is being shared across all of your back-end systems. So you eliminate all of these silos, right? Because today you might have, your SCADA equipment that is, operating on a, cellular network talking directly to your SCADA, and nobody else gets to use that data. So your OMS can't get any, outage information from that because it's siloed, it's segregated. While with the grid data management platform, a data bus, it can actually ingest the data from all of those silos and then have one single source of truth for all of your back office systems. On top of that data bus, we now have applications that target specific outcomes. So if you're interested in, software that does restoration, right, does the auto switching, fault line, isolation. If you're interested in applications that do voltage reduction, wildfire mitigation, et cetera, these are applications that we can now provide to you that sit on top of that data bus. And lastly, I mentioned in the earlier slide, there's 30 billion reads. Well, what do you do with all that data, right? Well, we've now developed a series or a suite of analytics that look at the data that tell you actionable insights, right? It looks at the data and says, you might have a tree trimming issue here. You might have a loose neutral over there. You might have a transformer that's overloaded or underutilized, right? So this is the kinds of information now that we are delivering. So this is our, entire, and you can use whatever you want from this, right? It's like a menu. You can just order what you want, what you need, right? You don't, you've already got connected devices from somebody else. That's fine, right? It'll still work with our grid data management platform. We can still deliver you the analytics that operate on that same data. It doesn't have to be Tantalus equipment that is measuring and delivering that data. So really what we're looking at here in another way is a unified set of solutions to, accelerate the modernization. And we have now developed a TRUSense Gateway, and, this device now sits sort of in the middle of everything. Our traditional focus, up until, a year or so ago, has been substation to meter or meter to cache, right? So we've been dealing with metering. We've been automating all of your distribution devices, allowing you to talk to cap banks and fault sensors and reclosers. We've been able to collect, data from your substation through the, True Grid Automation Suite into TrueSync. But now with the TRUSense Gateway, one of the things that, was giving a lot of our customers challenges, right, was all the stuff that's now happening behind the meter, right? These smart home appliances. Some of these appliances have capabilities that, can really benefit you as a utility, right? Smart hot water heaters that, can store 4 kilowatts of energy, right? By superheating the water and then mixing it at the top so it's still safe as it comes out of the heater, right? But it allows you to store that excess energy that sometimes occurs overnight when the wind is blowing and everybody's asleep and not using energy, right? When you got your smart thermostat programs, 40%, a lot of times when you have smart thermostat programs, 40% of those thermostats are not reachable by you when you want them, right? Up to 40%. Being able to shift, your peaks by pre-cooling or preheating homes in advance of an anticipated peak. These are things that, you may want to look into. In-home energy devices, right? The battery energy storage, solar, right? EV chargers, all of these things have the ability to push energy back onto the grid in ways that, have bad effects on your system, driving up voltage, um, or, creating too much load and damaging, the assets that you have in place, such as your transformers. So again, what we wanted to do with the TRUSense Gateway is provide a means where you can extend utility secured, standards-based communications, so, home plug and Wi-Fi into the home so that you can now securely access these devices, have surety. I know that these devices are always going to be online because they're connected to my access point. I can monitor them. And, I now know that I can manage all of these devices in the home and their effects on the network. So this is sort of where it sits. It's one device. There's multiple paths to a return on investment. Next gen AMI, we talk about that, right? There's a lot of hubbub in the industry right now about what they're calling AMI 2.0. Most of the competitors are talking about a brand new platform, right? That with a brand new communications network that's going to require you to rip and replace everything that you own. TRUSense allows you to deploy AMI 2.0 surgically at your place, at your pace, sorry, and at your budget. So, you can deploy AMI 2.0 capabilities in parallel, with whatever AMI system that you have in place, and it just augments your existing AMI. So deploy at your own pace. With TRUSense, you can now start doing a lot of the grid optimization, the granular data that comes out of this device that's measuring power quality, power factor, volts, kilowatts, reactance, resistance, impedance. This device supports 12 configurable or utility configurable channels of data recording that can be delivered, to your SCADA system, to your ADMS, to your control systems, right? That allows you to operate the grid in real time, optimizing, voltage output, optimizing power factor, optimizing, balancing loads in real time. So again, this is the basis for measuring. And the idea here is that you're measuring at the interconnection point between your distribution grid and the premise that you're supplying energy to. So you see exactly what's happening, what, those DERs that are behind this device, how they're affecting the power quality, what kind of energy they're pushing back or what kind of energy they are consuming. So, all of that, gives you, high granularity, high speed data. You no longer have to wait for the next 15-minute interval or for the next 8 hours worth of data being pushed up by your AMI system. You're getting this data in real time. And for those of you who have deployed fiber to the home, this opens up a whole new world because now you've got your fiber network that you've deployed and you've spent a lot of money on, and you're now able to leverage that not just for consumer broadband, but you're able to leverage it for grid modernization, grid optimization. And so that also opens up different sources of funding because traditionally, as an electric cooperative, if you've been looking to deploy, fiber to the home, you've been applying to funds that are intended to, provide or support or build out rural broadband, right? Well, now you can also, because you're not just using your fiber network for rural, for consumer broadband, because you're also using it for grid modernization, you can now apply for grid resiliency funding as well. So you get access to multiple sources of funds with TRUSense to really enhance the value of that fiber network that you are deploying. And lastly, it's about extending communications, and we'll talk about that, extending communications behind the meter so that you can, manage and monitor and control all of these devices that are, disparate devices. And, the system is flexible and it's extendable. And, you can be sure that any new groundbreaking device that's going to be impacting the electric industry, because everybody is out there thinking about how can I become the next Elon Musk and right, or billionaire or whatever, right? They're all thinking about these ideas. All of these devices that are being deployed in the home, they all have the homeowner, right? There's an app on their phone that they can run. So all of these devices are going to run on, standard Wi-Fi or standard IP communications. And so what we're doing is we're extending that capability. We're not using, some bespoke RF technology, right? Like Zigbee didn't do much, right? I mean, Zigbee just didn't get any traction, right? There's some other things out there that are other RF protocols. I doubt they'll get traction either, right? We need to stick with standards-based communications that are adopted by all of the smart appliances, all of the smart thermostats, et cetera, that people are deploying, because everything comes with an app that the consumer can use and manage and monitor these devices themselves on their phone.
Randy, this is
Yeah,
Matt. We got a couple of questions come in real quick.
sure.
First one is the gateway going to replace the existing RT4100 architecture?
That is the intent, yes. We do have a backwards compatible version, and I'll get to that. Yes.
Okay. The next question that came in is from a cybersecurity standpoint. How do we keep smart devices that are compromised from causing issues within the server system? Is there a mechanism to find those devices?
That's a good question. To be honest, we've put a lot of thought into making sure that the channel itself is secure. We validate these devices. We are going to have authentication of the devices themselves, but the question is if one of these devices becomes compromised subsequent to you authorizing it on your network, I guess we're gonna have to look at that. I don't have an answer off the top of my head right now
Let me
on that.
follow up on that one, Randy. There's a third one that comes in and says all of the data that is being ingested, where does the data itself live?
So the data ends up in the TrueSync data layer, right? The data bus that I talked about. Now, depending on the type of data, if it is, you have a choice with TrueSense. When you're sending the channels, you can have those channels go to TrueSync, and from TrueSync to your back office systems. That's if you're looking for highly granular, very high speed kind of data, like updates every second or every few seconds, something like that, right? Or updates that are notified on change, right? You define some dead bands and then the data goes to TrueSync and then it's available for all of your back office systems. TrueSync is sort of a real-time representation of the data across your entire network. So we're not storing historic data there. I mean, there is an option that we can store historic data, but typically it's just, the most recent data and everybody has access to the most recent, all of your back office systems have access to the most recent information. You do have the availability when you configure a channel in TrueSense to actually send that to your TrueConnect Insight instance. And there we will store the data for 14 months, right? And we have the ability to create graphs and things like that, for the devices. So you have the option to sort of mix and match. You can have some information that goes to TrueConnect Insight, and you can have other, grid modernization or, yeah, grid modernization values that go straight to TrueSync, and then it's from there, it'll go to your SCADA or ADMS.
Thanks,
Okay.
Randy.
All right. So TrueSync, as you can see here, it sits in the meter socket. It's designed to fit in a Form 1S, 2S, or 12S meter socket. 12S support will be coming, later next year. But the hardware right now is that you deploy is certainly capable of being put in a 12S socket. Um, it extends communications to all of the types of devices that you might be interested in partnering with your customer. So obviously, you're not going to reach out and you're going to monitor their EV, manage their EV charger without, the homeowners or the occupant's permission, right? So, you're going to most likely create some kind of a rate. You're going to have some kind of a program, and as part of that program, they agree to, provide co-control, if you will, to the EV charger or co-control to the solar inverter, right? So that both of you have the ability to manage that particular device. So internally in the fiber gateway, as I said, it sits here in the meter socket, and we've designed it. There's a service cartridge that sits at the bottom that clips in. You've got the round device itself, so it can fit in a ringed or ringless meter socket. We've got hundreds of these things out there installed in the real world now. So we've been through quite a few different, environments and meter sockets and, different types of meters, whether they're Tantalus meters or non-Tantalus meters. Um, so we've had no issues with any of the, physical connections or anything like that. That all works fine. Internally, we've added a serviceable fuse disconnect, so you can de-energize the electronics internally. So if you needed to go in there and you needed to do some maintenance, you can de-energize the innards of the TRUSense Gateway without affecting the flow of power into the premises, right? So that's a real benefit. The device has got advanced power quality sensors. It's capable of measuring, or sampling. It's sampling energy 256 times, taking 1,024 measurements per cycle. And all of that is going into our TrueEdge, distributed intelligence, system on chip, custom system on chip that we've been, shipping since 2013. It is a gateway for, our AMI network. It is also a gateway for all of the devices that are sitting in the home. Now, we're using a 2.4 gig Wi-Fi access point, 2.4 gig. Pretty much all of the distributed energy resource devices that we've been looking at, all of them use 2.4. Very few of them use 5 gig, although we do have 5 gig in the device as well. We can turn that on if we need it. Um, but 2.4 gig has got greater reach. But even then, Wi-Fi isn't going to reach from the meter socket all the way to every nook and cranny of the home. So we've also outfitted this device with something called Home Plug. It's a little standard. It's been around for quite some time. You can go and you can buy little adapters, little dongles that plug into an electric outlet, and they pair up, right? And you can deliver, Ethernet over power line in your home, right? So any outlet that is now sitting behind this device is now a possible Ethernet jack, effectively, if you think about it. So if you've got, an inverter that is, sitting in the attic that is far away from the meter, as long as you've got a power outlet close by, you can plug in a dongle and you can extend the reach of the IP reach using a combination of home plug and Ethernet. Okay. The service cartridge that sits below is serviceable. It contains the last gasp energy. So we're using some ultra capacitors in here. It also provides access to status LEDs that provide feedback on, if there's any communications issues. It'll blink a code and you just count the code, look it up. You know what the issue was. It tells you, it provides feedback that the device is operating correctly. It also allows you to access and manage any of the internal components. So the fiber SFP, if you're using the fiber version of this device, there's a SD card that goes in here that is used to store waveform captures, things like that. So you get access to it. And then it just connects in behind the regular meter. So as I said, it can be a Tantalus meter, in which case these two devices are communicating over TrueConnect. We're not using optical ports anymore on the front. So you can put a remote disconnect meter straight on the front of the fiber of the TRUSense Gateway. Or you can put a competitor's AMI meter on the front of it, even a PLC meter. It doesn't matter, right? We'll just augment those devices. So the variants that we've got a TRUSense Fiber Gateway. This one, it takes power, from the line side. And there's a slot in here, a small form pluggable slot in here. So you can use you just go to your vendor of choice. If you're using Calix or using Adtran or using Nokia, you just go to them and you get them to give you a industrial rated SFP for the technology that you are deploying, whether it's GPON, XGS-PON, active Ethernet, we don't care, right? You just buy one of those. It's a standard. You plug it in, you give it a fiber connection, and you secure it all through some conduit. Okay. The other version, to answer the question for those of you who were asking about the 4101 replacement, this device has the same sort of connections. So it provides power to your outdoor ONT, 12-volt DC power, and it takes an Ethernet connection to your outdoor ONT. Now, if you're using some other kind of modem, whether it's a cellular modem or you're using a satellite modem or you're using a WiMAX subscriber card, we're just providing power to power that device and we're getting Ethernet in return. So really you can use whatever kind of wide area network technology that you need or that you're currently using. You can expand it and extend it. So it'll work with WiMAX, point-to-point radios, wireless broadband, effectively anything with an Ethernet connection. And then lastly, we have the cellular gateway. We just put out a news release, I think, that we completed PTCRB. So that was the last certification that we needed. So we're now good to go. So this is exactly the same as the fiber gateway, but instead of putting a SFP in here that's no longer needed, we have an LTE radio sitting on the side. Okay. And so it uses LTE to connect to the internet. And we're using Sierra. Sierra's been both, they've been a partner with us here, helping us with the hardware, giving us the chipset that we're using, but also they provide us with a mobile virtual network operator. And so what this does is it leverages all of the cell towers that are available. So when the LTE module wakes up inside of the TRUSense Cellular Gateway, it looks to find which is the best tower, and then it'll connect to that tower. So we're basically carrier agnostic. And not only that, if there's a problem with one of the carriers, we have fallback. These devices will fall back to the available carriers that are still in operation. So it's very robust, gives you high degree of high percentage of uptime, lots of nines, and lots of flexibility.
Hey, Randy, a couple quick questions that came in. Uh, can you tell us about plans for a 9S or polyphase TRUSense Gateway? Is that on the roadmap today?
It's not on the roadmap today, but we are thinking about it. I think it's going to depend on, the kind of demand that we're going to get. I mean, obviously, we know that we're going to have to do something for polyphase. it's going to be another development, but we'll have to, prioritize it accordingly, right?
And
So,
then can you remind?
there has been some talk about just, if you've got a large commercial customer, for example, or something like that that you're looking to monitor, you can hook up one of these to each individual phase. So yeah, you would have to use three of them, but we could pull that data back and provide the same capabilities.
Okay, thanks. Then does the gateway, can you remind us, does it provide any DC output power?
That is correct. It does. The Ethernet gateway provides the same 12 volts DC that the RT4101 does today. Okay. If you look at it, you'll see that it has a much larger power supply here, right, than the others. Okay. So if you need power output to support a radio, then the Ethernet gateway is your choice. All right.
Thanks, Randy.
Okay. Now, from a voltage measurement point of view, I don't want to get too technical here, so I'm just gonna, effectively how this works is the device is sampling voltage in amps. This device is connected to neutral in the meter socket, so it can measure line one to neutral and line two to neutral separately. It doesn't have to impute it. It's taking 256 samples each of voltage in amps, line one to neutral and line two to neutral as the atomics. So it's taking 1,024 measurements every cycle, and then it's calculating the 12 up to 12 utility configurable channels. Okay. And then for each of those channels, when you configure it, you configure the measure, you configure the periodicity, you configure, the method, whether you're using RMS or min or max or average or peak to peak or whatever it is. And then you configure the destination. And the destination can be nowhere because you're just feeding a trigger, or the destination can be, TrueConnect Insight, or, the destination can be, TrueSync if you're delivering this data directly to your SCADA system. So with this kind of information, you can set up alarms within the device to do things like detect true loose neutrals, right? If the voltage between line one and line two differs by more than, a configurable amount, you get an alarm and a waveform capture. You now know you've got a true loose neutral, right? We can get waveform captures with your blinks, right? And we can count a blink down to a single cycle, right? We can look for and detect the presence of EV or battery storage because we're sampling every cycle, and we know that demand for a 2 hour, 3 hour period has never dropped below a certain amperage. And so we know that we've got a large load that is not a dryer, not a heater, it is certainly battery storage or an EV. We can distinguish received energy from delivered energy. So we can detect solar generation, and we can monitor that solar generation output and provide alarms if they are exceeding, the agreement. So, maybe they up the capacity of their solars, and they didn't talk to you. Well, we can now detect that and alarm on that. You can get alarms on excessive harmonics or bad power factor. We can look for load imbalances, right? Because we're measuring line one to neutral, line two to neutral separately. You can look to see if you've got a real disparity between, amperages, line one to neutral, line two to neutral, and you can balance accordingly. Use waveform captures on an outage, right, to determine if your protection equipment is operating correctly, right? As I said, these measures can be pushed as granularly as once per second to your SCADA or ADMS. And if you don't have that, you can use our TrueFlex load and DER management software, for a single vendor solution. This is an example here just of the types of data, the atomics that we pulled. So, here you had a 30-second, waveform capture that was triggered, by excessive amperage. And if you look at the waveform, you can see that you did have some, lagging effect here when this load, which in this case happened to be a big fan that's connected to a transformer at a substation, when it turned on, there was a lagging power factor, right? So it created some issue. I'm not going to talk to this, but this just briefly, this is all of the measures that you can configure, all the gory details. We'll leave it in the presentation for those of you who want to look at it later, but just suffice to say you got everything from, anything that you would typically get out of a meter all the way down to total harmonic distortions, impedance, reactance, resistance, etc. So what would I use this for? Well, if I'm using this to connect to behind the meter devices, right, then, I need a highly secure. This has to be secure, right? Because I'm creating a tunnel into the home where my back office control systems are now connecting to devices inside the home and managing and monitoring those, collecting data from them, issuing commands to them, whatever it is that your use case is, right? So we're using a combination of Wi-Fi and home plug, but that access point is entirely controlled by you. Nothing can get onto that access point without your permission. You have to put the device into an acquisition mode. You have, at the end of the acquisition mode, you get to name and keep the devices that you're interested in having on, as part of it. And then you can kick off devices that you don't want to. So yes, if you do have a rogue device, you can immediately kick it off. You just go into the gateway and you just delete it, and that will kick it off. Um, and we monitor these devices continuously to make sure that they are connected. So if you're giving a rebate to the customer because they're allowing you to adjust their thermostat, if they reconfigure their thermostat and you don't have control, you will immediately know. And you can contact that customer and say, hey, that rate that you're on, do you want to keep it? If you do, we need to reconnect your thermostat to our gateway. Okay. So things, you might be interested in: smart thermostats, pre-cool, preheat houses, do load reduction during peaks, hot water heaters, the intelligent ones. You can turn them, off during a peak. You can preheat them when you've got excess, renewable energy. Smart appliances, you can control them. Inverters, EV chargers, energy storage, all of these types of devices you can monitor, manage, and control. And using these types of controls, you can shift load, you can host more renewables, you can make the grid more dynamic, you can verify participation, and we can even deliver this data, to something like customer portal that can do disaggregation and tell them how much energy is being used by their heating and by their entertainment and by their EV charger, whatever it happens to be. So you can provide very granular information that allows that type of disaggregation to occur. From an AMI perspective, I mean, as I said, TRUSense is AMI agnostic, so it can augment any existing AMI deployment. So if you've got a PLC-based AMI system, continue to use it, right? Deploy TRUSense where you have renewables that you want to be able to monitor and control, but still continue to get your billing data, through your PLC system. That's fine. If you are using, Tantalus AMI network, this device supports up to 250 TrueConnect devices. It also supports the ability to, natively read Itron Ertz, Badger CEs, or Neptune R900 devices through a process we call TrueScan. If you have a competing AMI system and you put enough TrueConnect devices out, now you have options when it comes to streetlight control, direct load control, distribution automation, right? We have those applications. We can deliver those applications over the TrueConnect network. So you can look at our solution and you can look at your existing AMI provider solution, and you have now options available to you, right? Our commitment is anything that we build new is always backwards compatible with all of our previous releases, so this is no different. So really, it's the combination of the two provides a lot of flexible deployment options, right? So you can use TRUSense both as a gateway for the Tantalus TrueConnect network, and you can use it for grid modernization. Traditionally, we have been selling collectors, right? Gateways that are pole mounted, right? That's all they do. They provide connectivity to all of our devices in a robust fashion, but they don't do anything else. The TrueConnect gateway actually does more than that, right? The TrueConnect gateway now operates as a gateway for our network, but it also extends comms into the home. So you can now extend your network by adding all of these other devices, and you can get the high-speed measurements to support grid modernization. So you get, three for the price of one, if you will. Um, if you're deploying fiber to the home, and you're using outdoor ONTs, use TRUSense to power your outdoor ONT. And then, you're leveraging your fiber network for grid modernization, right? Augment your existing AMI network, integrate to your DERs, use the cellular version as a portable power quality device, right? You got a customer complaining about power quality. Put the cellular version there, let it run for a week, gather all the data that you need, diagnose, confirm that you fixed the problem, right? Then you can take it out and move it elsewhere, right? It's portable, right? Mix and match any of the above, right? From a security point of view, each one of these devices is fully and uniquely encrypted. The data is all encrypted, the file system's encrypted, the firmware image is different from device to device. All the data traffic is encrypted. We're using secure boot. The firmware is authenticated. Even the build system source code is authenticated, right? And, availability, everything is done through credentials. Devices cannot connect without confirmation of the unique credentials for that device. And we they fully support firmware upgrades, and it's NEMA compliant. So I wanted to take a little bit of time now that I've talked about the product is to talk a little bit about how some of our early customers envision using this. So going to keep the utilities nameless for now. But the first utility I'd like to showcase is a utility um, that has invested heavily in battery energy storage units. Okay. And what they do is they offer these to their members for a flat monthly charge, with the proviso that they get to use these devices as well, right? But they will never leave the member with a charge less than 30%. And this allows the benefit for the homeowner is that even with that 30%, they're guaranteed to ride out 95% or 99% of the outages that typically occur at this utility. Okay. So the homeowner is paying a little extra every month on their bill, and they're allowing the utility to install this battery energy storage unit. The customer no longer has to deal with outages, and the utility gets to use these devices. And at the same time, they've also deployed a fiber to the home network, so they're looking to leverage it for grid modernization. So what do they want to do? Well, first off, they want to aggregate the available load, right? And they want to bid these into the market when it is profitable. So they've got a large fleet of these devices. They're, loading these devices overnight. They're loading these devices during the day. And when it's profitable, they will then they will bid this into the open market, and they will discharge this energy. Now they're using the communications network, so they have guaranteed access and control to each battery energy storage unit, right? But in addition, they also are using the measurements from TRUSense to verify the discharge, right? So they want to confirm the discharge, right? Because if you can bid and you can measure, right, you actually get paid more than if you bid and you can't measure. You just hope in a prayer. Okay. So it allows them to maximize the revenue when they bid this excess energy. Furthermore, they use the same application or the same solution to avoid setting new peaks. because they're in an environment where if they set a new peak, then next year they're going to have a higher demand charge. So they're very conscious of the fact that they need to manage and monitor their peaks. And so when it looks like they're about to set a new peak, they will immediately dispatch this fleet of battery energy storage units to avoid setting a new peak and hence, avoid additional expenses or higher energy costs in the coming year. So it's very profitable for them. The same customer also wants to, monitor end of line voltages and they want to monitor power factor, from key bellwether locations, because they want to reduce the amount of power that they're actually, purchasing, right? So they're using voltage regulation. They got immediate feedback from end of line devices into their SCADA system. So they know that, yeah, there's still some meat on the table that I can lower voltage even further, or shoot, I've gone too far, I need to bump up a little bit, right? So this allows them to really optimize their power purchase costs. Similarly with managing, power factor, because if they've got bad power factor, then they're using more energy to compensate. So really, the two things go hand in hand, the voltage levels and the power factor. Okay.
Randy, just
Yep.
quick comment. We've had some questions that come in, and I know we're getting towards the end of time, and I want to make sure you get through these use cases. For all of
Mhm.
you that submitted questions, I'll follow up directly with you when I send our slides out. So just know we'll answer your questions. Randy, we got about 6 minutes to get through the next couple of case studies or use cases, if you would.
I will. I'll get there. Okay, another use case from a different utility. This was actually a press release of ours a little back. I didn't have to talk about this, but this is an East Coast utility that's looking to accelerate grid modernization and decarbonization efforts. Their mandate is to make sure that they're providing benefits to all of their ratepayers, including those that don't have access to broadband. So this utility is centered on, created a program centered on managing demand, either shifting the peaks, or altering the normal consumption pattern, from these devices, using advanced forecasting and automation, and strategies to manage peak demand. So, this is where they're doing energy storage or preheating or pre-cooling homes. And then on top of that, they're also, managing demand during these events, right? So, if there is a weather event that's coming in, um, they use these smart circuit breakers, the smart thermostats, and innovative these hot water heaters that I was talking about. They can use these devices to, preload the home, if you will, with energy in advance of the weather event, or they can and or they can manage the demand that is occurring during the event. And hopefully avoid the old uh, traditional fallback of rolling back blackouts, right? That doesn't work really for anybody. So really what we're trying to do here is avoid that kind of disruption and be more surgical. So, with the smart circuit breakers, we can turn off loads in the house, whether it be the dryer, we can turn off the hot water heater, and we can monitor through those same circuit breakers. We can see how much load currently is being consumed, across those circuits, right? So we can aggregate that. So, it's involved, distributed energy storage in advance of the peak loads, and additional load can be shed, right? So it's really an innovative program. They're using a combination of control systems and analytics, and forecasting together with the control systems and measurement capabilities of TRUSense, to, verify the outcomes, and enable the communications in the first place. We've talked about TRUSense to a number of different customers. The most common use case that most of our customers come up with immediately is the same one that I talked about before, which is being able to get end of line and key bellwether location, power quality data, and voltage data into their SCADA system, so they can adjust cap banks and hit voltage taps, just output at the substation, et cetera. And those utilities that did deploy fiber to the home networks really like the fact that now you know, they can leverage that massively capable communications network for more than just, consumer broadband. And they're doing this to avoid, heavy penalties that sometimes are imposed by their power provider if they, exceed demand or if they, have bad power factor. So that's a significant use case. Another use case that we talked about, number of utilities have listened to this and they've said, hey, yeah, that's a great idea. I've got a portable power quality recorder. Let me use it for that, and then I'll see what other uses I have for it as I go along. And then we have some customers, that have been with us for a long period of time. We deployed their systems many years ago, and subsequently they've invested in fiber to the home, and now they're looking to leverage that investment, as I said, for more than just consumer broadband. And for them, moving to a socket-based, maintenance-free collector solution that also supports their grid modernization efforts allows them to migrate off of some of these older wide area, RF-based wide area network solutions that we had. And immediately they see the benefit because the system responsiveness is now down, seconds as opposed to multiple minutes as it was with the legacy wide area network technology. So they're not replacing any of the field devices. They're just replacing the wide area network technology with a much more capable wide area network, fiber network. And immediately their entire system benefits, from that change. So really, in closing, the TRUSense Gateway is, as I've been talking about, it's a multi-purpose device installed in the meter socket, creates secure utility communications path into the premise, augments that by providing advanced power quality measurements, and it supports any broadband initiatives that you have, right? So, and if you couple this with the TRUSync Grid data management platform, utilities really can harness the power of data in an interoperable and secure fashion. And so, I'm going to leave it to Matt here, but really what we're interested in is, what challenges are you experiencing? You've listened to this presentation. We'd love to talk to you to see, how TRUSense and TRUSync can help you on your road to grid modernization. Protecting assets, delaying system upgrades, and optionally leveraging your investments in broadband. So we'd be more than happy, to work with you and talk to you and listen to your ideas. That's how we get the best ideas, yours.
Randy, thanks.
Yeah.
And thank you all for sticking with us through the session today. Randy, there's a lot of great information. We've had a series of questions come through. Some of them we got to in the presentation itself. Others I'll either take offline and we can work directly, or we'll get answers to you. Again, I'd reiterate what Randy mentioned. We've seen some really creative uses of the TRUSense Gateway once folks understand the capabilities that the platform is enabling, whether it's the TRUSense alone or in combination with the other parts of our platform that Randy mentioned, such as TRUSync. I've got my contact information on the slides here. I will answer questions. Thanks, Randy. And also, we're interested in learning more, talking to you more about what you're looking to do and what the TRUSense Gateway can enable for you. So please feel free to reach out. We've recorded the session. I will share that with everyone. Randy, thank you for taking us through this today. I think there's a lot of great, valuable information, and really do appreciate everyone sticking with us throughout the hour. So thank you, and have a great rest of your day. Randy, thanks.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, everybody.